Everyone, today God and Abraham talk about justice. The men got up from there and went over to look down on Sodom. Abraham was walking along with them to send them off. When Yahweh said, "Will I keep from Abraham what I am about to do?" Then Yahweh said, "The cries of injustice from Sodom and Gomorrah are countless, and their sin is very serious. I will go down now to examine the cries of injustice that have reached me. Have they really done all this? If not, I want to know." The men turned away and walked towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Abraham approached and said, "Will you really sweep away the innocent with the guilty? What if there are 50 innocent people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not save the place for the sake of the 50 innocent people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, killing the innocent with the guilty, as if there were no difference. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do what is just?" So we get a really interesting picture of God in this story, and also God's relationship with Abraham. We hear God being kind of self-reflective, like, should I tell Abraham what I'm thinking of doing? And then God has to go to Sodom personally to see what's going on. But the point is that if Abraham is going to practice and model justice, he needs to see how God does it. And so God's going to let him in on this process. And God's high regard for Abraham kind of explains why Abraham can be so bold. Have you ever spoken to God like this in your prayers? I don't know, maybe we should more. Abraham was called God's friend, after all. Really, a true relationship is not damaged by hard questions. And that's the kind of relationship we all want with God, right? Will not the judge of all the earth do what is just? Let's be honest. Have you never looked at the state of the world and kind of wondered that, prayed that? Abraham doesn't ask this because he's unsure what God is like. He knows that Yahweh is a God of justice, the God who does right by people. And so he's just looking for consistency. He's calling God to act as who God is. Now, with everything in Genesis, as we've been talking about from the beginning, it's all filtered through their ancient worldview, right? That's why God has to go down to check it out. We should know that God doesn't have to be convinced to be just or to be loving. We can trust that justice and love are so central to God's very being and character that God can't not practice them. Maybe the problem is that we've created God in our own image. If our justice isn't always that concerned about harming innocent people who get caught in the crossfire, well, it's not surprising we would expect God to work the same way. Instead, we should know that the cross of Christ is the ultimate way that God addresses the injustice of the world. It's to suffer it in God's own self. This is who God is and always has been and always will be. Anything less than that kind of self-sacrificial love is not God. So, trust that this is who God is and have Abraham's boldness if you got any questions.